Welcome, everyone. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to get started here on the Eastern Seaboard. My name is Eli Bortz, and this is crafting a compelling nonfiction book proposal. This is what Flatpage specializes in, so we're going to dig right into it, give you some good insight into that strange animal that is the nonfiction proposal. A few housekeeping items as we get started. If you could please make sure you're muted and videos turned off. If you have questions at any time you'd like to ask, please put them in the chat. You can drop them right there, and we will make sure we got plenty of time at the end to answer some questions. So let's get started. As I said, I'm Eli Bortz. I'm the acquiring editor in charge of, I guess you would say, politics, history, um, contemporary issues, I suppose, if you want to say it. And I'd like to introduce Thao, who handles the culture and arts side. Tao, are you there?
I am. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm happy to be here talking about the nonfiction book proposal with Eli and to tell you a little bit more about Flatpage. As Eli said, I'm working on the arts and culture side, so interested in a lot of topics, everything from visual arts to design and fashion, technology. We really do it all here at Flatpage, and yeah, we're excited to tell you more about us.
Now, so a little bit more about uh, Flatpage. Flatpage began several years back as and this is one of the most interesting things to me, as an editorial agency. I was sort of working in developmental editing jobs and working with quite a few large entities around the world. This Flatpage Books started organically, uh, came out of a desire to fill a gap that we felt. I came out of the university press world for about, spent 20 years in the university press world. And, needless to say, right now, nonfiction publishing, especially outside of the trade houses, is pretty tricky. And we saw that need that needed to be filled. And that's what Flatpage is doing. We're a small press focused on um, books that challenge, books that might make some publishers uncomfortable, and whether that is for an ideology or perhaps because of well, who knows, any number of reasons that can face any number of university presses or um, sort of state entity presses, shall we say. It's a delicate time, and we've recognized that. Our first book out is Gunocracy on the phenomenon of mass shooting in the United States, why it exists, why it happens here. That's a good example of kind of the books that we're looking at. One of the nicest things about flat page books is because we're not um, we're not overburdened, we're not behind schedule. We're getting started. We're literally at the start of our publishing house. We can move fast, and in fact, we do. And that is no small thing. Also in the university press world, Tao, I would love to know your sort of take as a novelist, what you experienced in the trade houses. I mean, what's speed? What's the pipeline in your mind?
Sure. It's a different animal, and I think, there's no right or wrong way to go when you're looking to place your book in its proper home. But I do find that with traditional publishing, as Eli said, the schedule is really stretched. So a book might take as long as a year, 2 years to come out. There are exceptions, books that are able to be produced quite rapidly, but generally it takes a very long time. And so what that often means is that topics that are urgent and prescient today might not have that same urgency a year or two from now.
Mm.
And so what's really nice about Flatpage is that we can really seize the opportunity of the conversation that's happening in the news, in the media, in culture. And
Mhm.
so if you have a book that feels like it needs to be released soon and with high production value, then this is really a good home for you.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, especially about the varying times that authors can encounter in publishers. Without getting anyone committed to anything, flat page probably can stand against most publishers in terms of start from production, from starting manuscript to having the finished book in hand. Publishing has changed so much, the technology has changed so rapidly, and distribution is now worldwide. So a small publisher that gets into this business the right way can compete, can get the books in the shelves and the stores. They can, we can do it. We work with Ingram, which has worldwide distribution. So we feel pretty confident about the future of Flatpage. Now, with that said, let's move into the proposals. Tao, you want to take it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Eli. So, just to back up, for those who are unfamiliar, a nonfiction book proposal is a rather chunky document that gets sent to agents, to editors, and to publishers directly. So, Flatpage is unique in that we will accept proposals from writers as well as from agents. So you do not have to go through an agent and go through the querying process to work with us. But if you do have an agent, we're happy to mediate and all work together in that way. So what is included in a proposal exactly? Proposals can vary, but there are similar elements in each. The document itself, its purpose is to be a document of possibility, a way to excite publishers about your book before they even read a word. For other genres, such as fiction and poetry, creative nonfiction perhaps, you really depend on the manuscript to present a vision. But with nonfiction, the type of nonfiction we're publishing here at Flatpage and the type that you're likely writing as authors yourself, this sort of book is a lot more reliant on a clean, clear, and convincing proposal. And that's sort of how you have to look at this document. It is a way for you as an author to view the project at a high level and clearly organize your thoughts. It lets you establish subject matter authority. And maybe one of the most important roles of all, a nonfiction book proposal can help publishers visualize the marketing plan. I think if you've worked in this industry for a while, you understand the idea of platform. You understand the idea of authority. What is it about my voice that is so unique to me? And how can I make that clear to a publisher, to an agent, to an editor? A lot of times, nonfiction works live and die by not just the content that's within the book, but the way in which it's presented to the world. And so for publishers to understand things like audience, things like marketing and PR opportunities, they need to have your help in visualizing what this might look like. I think one of the most important things is that this nonfiction proposal is a way to tell your editor a story.
Mhm.
Eli says this all the time. Give us the absolute best scene you have. This isn't one of those instances where we kind of want to be living in the mystery and discover it on page 100, 50% through the book. We want to know what it is that makes your book so unique and so special to you. So, you could just begin your proposal with a scene, with the thing that's being uncovered. What is it that is so extraordinary that will make a reader stop in her or his tracks? That's going to be what's going to do the same for your editor. And so, knowing that you can speak about your book in a way that is both straightforward, succinct, and eloquent gives us a good basis to work from when we think about things like publicity and marketing. In short, we're not just viewing the book as an object, we're viewing the way it's going to live among readers and audiences. And so I encourage you as authors to look at your proposal as a way to clarify your thoughts. I've written proposals on my own. A lot of times, nonfiction book projects are bought on proposal before the book is even written. And so you might not have all of the pages yet, but what you need is an idea and a way to communicate that idea.
Yeah, well said. Um, let's see. Do you want to do the template now, Tao?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, let's go through it.
All right.
So templates can vary somewhat depending on what exactly you're working on, but generally we want to stick to some of these parameters here. And if you're able to, I encourage you to take notes or maybe screenshot this slide here just for future reference. It'll give you a nice way to organize your thoughts. So you want to start with the scene. And actually, this is sort of Eli's baby. So Eli, can you tell us a little bit about the scene and I can go through the rest of the bullets?
Absolutely, and yeah,
All
and
right,
I'll expand on that in the on the next screen.
great.
This scene is again the standout moment in your mind. You can think of, there's two ways of going about this. I mean, some folks finish the entire manuscript and then do the proposal. Others have the proposal early on. Obviously, if you're working from the full manuscript, you know as the author what's in your mind the most compelling moment in your manuscript, the most compelling scene, the most compelling event, however you want to describe it. I'd love to see that, front and center on any proposal. And if you haven't written it yet, best way to do that is tell me what excites you about the project that you're building. Tell me what's important. So that's what I mean by the scene.
That's exactly right. Actually, recently we looked at a proposal that had such a stunning opening scene that we all as a team sort of stopped and talked about it. It was a medical themed nonfiction book, and the writer talked about discovering something rare, but he put it in such words and within the scene. So we were actually, as readers there, able to see what was happening, able to feel the emotions of the room, and it was just very well done. And I think sometimes we separate nonfiction and fiction into these two discrete categories, but
Mm,
really it's about telling a story, right? And we as editors and publishers, we see a lot of stories throughout the day. And so what we want is a story that feels like it could only have come from you as a writer.
absolutely.
So the scene, as Eli so eloquently put it, it establishes that for us. So, when you're crafting your sample proposal, you'll want to pay attention to the publisher guidelines. They might have different requirements, different expectations, but really what you are trying to establish is a clear fit between your work and what the publisher is doing. One of the reasons we spent a little bit of time at the beginning of the conversation talking about what Flatpage is looking for is because we want to be really clear that we can all collaborate together in a way that's best for you and for the book and for the publishing house. And a lot of times that's what publishing is, just finding the right fit for your work. And so some of the things that we like to include and we like to see in proposals are summaries, and that can include a chapter outline, which is really helpful for us in determining both the length of the book and the scope of the book. How long is it going to be? Is there a historical period that we're focusing on? Is it more long ranging? Is it something that is only based in sort of contemporary research and discussion? Word count is very helpful as well. Again, that gives us a sense of the scope. It gives us a sense of what you're hoping to accomplish. And it also helps us think about audience as well. A projected completion date. In terms of nitty gritty, that's very helpful for us because, again, we do like to work on a faster timeline. And if that's the case, and perhaps you have a book that's ready to go, that'll have different considerations than a book that maybe is in the beginning phases, which isn't to say that we wouldn't be excited to work with you, but it would just create a difference in the production schedule for us. We want to see your bio. And in terms of bio, what's really important is, again, establishing that subject matter expertise. Why are you the person to tell this story, to write this book, to bring this research to audiences? What sorts of things have you done in the past? What's your education? What sorts of organizations are you participating with? What interesting things about your professional history can we bring in to help fulfill the picture? We want to see a target audience and comparable titles. One of the things that I, as an editor, am particularly invested in is understanding whether the author is well read in their subject field. What that tells me then is that they are in conversation with other people who are talking about the same things they're talking about, that they understand what's been done and where the gaps of opportunity are, and that they themselves are curious and excited about the world around them. So often during editorial calls, what I like to ask is, what are you reading right now? And it's very important that you're reading in the subject that you're speaking about, because then it gives you a good foundational basis to build your arguments and your research on. Marketing ideas. I recently reviewed a beautiful proposal that had all sorts of marketing ideas, not just about, the typical sort of ad placements that we can put on social media and different book related publications, but things like events, creative ideas about panels that they could host. These are the kinds of things that make proposals stand out, because then we understand that you're not just thinking about the content of your book. Again, you're thinking about the life it lives beyond the pages. And then lastly, very importantly, we would love to see sample chapters. As Eli mentioned, it's fine if you don't have your entire book written at this point of the proposal and the conversations, but we do want to see what your style is like. How are you accumulating your research and presenting it to an audience that might not be subject matter experts as you are? What is your voice like? How are you organizing these thoughts? This is the nitty gritty craft that we're really concerned with here. And the sample chapters, frankly, can get us really excited about what you can do as an author and the sort of tangible story that you're bringing to audiences. So these are just a few of the things that we look for in a proposal. And I think this is a good place to start when you're crafting your own.
Yeah. Well said. And that's a good rundown on what should be in. And I'll take on the how it should look. What how you should shape this thing. I like to think of a nonfiction book proposal because it doesn't need to be um, doesn't need to be bloodless or sticking strictly to like a business letter structure. The best proposals I've seen, and I hesitate to even put a number on how many nonfiction proposals I've read, but the best ones uh, that show up on my desk look like a short story. I cannot emphasize how important um, the cleanliness of the document should be, the seamlessness of the document. Every word, every line, the best proposals move seamlessly from one section to the other in a very conversational tone. It's just it just says that you've got it. When if you present me with that kind of proposal where it's clear that you've worked over every line, every word, there's no fluff, there's no the kind of platitudes that people think they have to put into every letter. I want to know about you, and I want to know about the book, and I want to know that you're nimble about your project, that you can think about it in different ways and express it in different ways. That's so important to me, and that's so when I say an airtight proposal, I mean one that just kind of sticks uh, uh, to the meat of the matter every time, on every chat, every paragraph and every page. That's to me, that's so important. Let's go on to the next one. Tao. Yes. So deep subject matter expertise. the best way to present these kind of things, these two, three, four, these are all crucial. But again, I cannot emphasize enough how much I want to be thrown into the world of your book from paragraph one, from sentence one. You don't even have to worry about introducing yourself yet. Just show me that you know your project, that you know the landscape that you're trying to contribute to, and that you know how to sell your book. I want to see, these ideas presented clearly in very base, in uh, language that can be read by just about anyone. One of the main things you're going to have to, deal with as an author submitting a proposal is that proposal is going to be picked up and looked at by probably several people. It could be could be a student editorial assistant at a university press who maybe is not well versed in the material, but they've been asked to give a recommendation on the merits of the pages itself. What does the proposal look like? How does it sound? How does it read? How does it feel? Is the author clearly engaging with the community of thinkers, that they're willing and able to present and promote this idea in every way they can, in any way they can, open to everything. That's so important to being able to convince us that we should take a chance on your book. Let's go to the next slide.
Real quick, too, I
Yeah,
also
please.
wanted to say, because I know that as an author myself, it's really helpful to have examples. So, a couple examples of things that I have recently seen in proposals that have been really helpful for me. Actually, you'd be surprised at the power of imagery. So, a couple proposals I recently got have been about fashion and beauty, and the beauty industry. And they will include imagery from archival documents, from runway shows, even examples of laboratories where beauty products are made. And even
Mhm.
though these images might not go in the final book, it helps create this picture and this world. And I found it really engaging, actually. So it won't be right for all of you. I'm sure you're working on a variety of nonfiction work, but if there is an opportunity to include imagery that feels especially compelling, or a diagram, or something that sparks your interest, it probably will spark our interest too.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I really like things like that. I like when an author is able to point to things happening in contemporary culture. I don't know if you feel the same, Eli, but when they are able to say something like, well, there has been this recent rise in conversation about, say, AI relationships,
Mm.
and my book really neatly fits into this other article that was published by the Washington Post, and we
Hmm.
can be in conversation with each other. So again, these kind of breadcrumbs that prove to us that not only do you know your own story, but you know the wider story of what's happening in the world and how you fit into it. These are the kinds of things that really compel me as an editor.
Yeah. And I wanted to actually riff off that because you said something that I had forgotten to mention, which is kind of what I consider to be kind of the ultimate cheat code in proposals, which is um, if you can, the proposal you're submitting to the publisher, if you can cite and discuss one or two uh, specific titles that we've published that mean something to you, that brought you, that shows us both that you have done your research on the publisher, and that you've got what we're doing. You get what it is what it is we're trying to accomplish. That tells me that you've done your homework. It's a great little thing to drop anywhere in the proposal. It just shows that you've done your homework, and it's a nice touch. So there you go. There's a little cheat touch.
It's a great
Um,
one, Eli.
yeah, of course. So the next one is a it's kind of the abbreviated, I guess, version of this, and it's going to be completely different. It's called the elevator pitch, and it does happen. I've seen it happen. It's a good moment. It's an interesting moment, and I thought we'd run you through that just in case you're at a conference, you get into the elevator, you may recognize the editor, or you may have seen their badge, and you realize, wow, this person actually works for one of the publishers that I'm hoping to get. You introduce yourself. It helps if you can think of any sort of personal connections with that editor, whether it be, yeah, I don't know, if you have any connections with the university the editor works at, something human, something basic, something essential. Even if maybe you have a colleague who published with me, or just something like that. If you can make a human connection, I'm in. And the next thing that should be sort of presented is uh, how is your project fitting the news of the moment, or the zeitgeist, if you will. Can you connect your work, regardless of how sort of academic or niche you might find it to be, odds are you're going to be able to think about that question pretty quickly. You've probably already thought about it. How does my book, how does my plan for this book, how does that work in the moment? And if you can connect it to, contemporary news or contemporary issues, something that people have been talking about, that just moves it right along. By then you're probably, wrapping up the elevator ride. But, first and foremost, just be personal, just be personable. We're there to talk. Every editor who is at a conference is not there just to kind of, man a booth and then be done with it. We're looking to talk to anyone and everyone, because you never know what kind of moment what kind of meeting will lead to something else. That's the elevator pitch. It can't go on forever, but as I said, if you can bring it down to the personal, if you can connect it in some way to the editor you're talking to, or the moment in which we're all living in, then you've done it. You've succeeded in the pitch. I guarantee you're gonna get a response from that. It might just be the business card and say, please, contact me with your project. That's enough. Then you've got the ball rolling. You're on the way. You're on the path. So that's the elevator pitch.
Thanks, Eli. That was great. And I want to reiterate something too. I think sometimes if you're anything like me, you might feel uncomfortable pitching yourself. It's a strange situation, right? It's not entirely natural,
Yeah.
not as natural as, having a spontaneous conversation. But I think that point Eli made about being human is so very crucial. We all want to work with kind people, hardworking people, responsible people. And an editor is no different. You could have the most genius book in the world, but if you're not, inherently a person with empathy and curiosity and kindness, there's only so far you can go in this industry, because it is one built on connections, as Eli said. And so, that this sort of networking and pitching does take practice, and it might be uncomfortable for you at first if it's not something you've done before. But just know that we're all looking to learn about interesting people and interesting projects. So you're not, when you're going up to an editor and talking about your work, as long as you're doing it in sort of a human way, a manner that is, curious and humble and kind, we are very excited to talk with you about your project. And so you don't have to feel that sense of self-consciousness if that is something you are working with or battling with, as I do. Okay, and then as we're closing out, again, we'd love to hear your questions. So feel free to, send them to us, send them in the chat, or, you can also unmute and ask them directly. But before we leave you off with the question portion, we wanted to give you a few additional resources. So some of the things that I have used as both an editor and a writer, I have used lots of books. There are tons of books that focus on the industry at large and what it looks like. Some geared specifically for nonfiction, and some more generally for just anyone working in the written word. And so one of the books I really like is called Before and After the Book Deal. It probably could use an update. I think it's been out for about a decade now, and the world has changed quite a lot since then. But it'll give you a good basis for understanding how to get from one step to another, how deals are made, how publishers work as well. Podcasts are great for this. There are so many that work in publishing specifically. There's one run by two agents. I will find the name and I'll pop it in the chat in a bit. And blogs. One blog that I really rely on is the Jane Friedman's blog. She is an invaluable resource, and she works a lot with nonfiction projects as well. So be sure to check those out, read them widely, spend your time sort of engaging with the industry at large. There are proposal consultants that you can find. I believe Readsy is a place you can go to look for a consultant. But those people will actually work with your document, and they will be able to shape it in a way as to highlight the best of your project, the best of your story. And so, obviously not accessible to everyone, but that is something that you could consider if you need a little bit of extra help. Agents. I have an agent and I really rely on her, and you don't need one to submit to Flatpage, but if you do have one or you're interested in that extra help, that is a resource that agents provide as well, refining and cleaning up proposals to make them shine. And lastly, writing networks. So, this can just be a group of friends who write with you, and maybe they can review your work in progress. Maybe they can look at your proposal, give feedback on what feels gratuitous, what feels like it might need to rise a little bit more to the top. One thing I say as a writer and as an editor is that your community is everything. We really can work in a silo as authors sometimes, and we don't really get that sense of encouragement and the challenge that we need to move us to the next level. So finding your writing networks is really important. And then one last thing I didn't write on the slide, but I wanted to mention was writing workshops. Now we have with Zoom and sort of this asynchronous this technology that we have, we're able to take courses, even quick one-offs. And so I really encourage you to look into that if you want to further your craft, if you want to be in conversation with other writers. So yeah, those are a few resources that you can look into as well.
Hmm.
And then I think we'll just jump into the
Yeah,
Q&A. And it looks like we've got one in the chat now.
yeah, it's
Um,
perfect.
I wonder if you could tackle this one, Eli. It says, what makes Flatpage different from other publishers? I've
Mm,
heard that working directly with a publisher without an agent can be risky for the author.
mm.
How does Flatpage work directly with authors who don't have an agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will tell you again, coming from the university press world, um, agented works at in the university press level are pretty rare. I've worked with maybe a handful of agents in my in 20 years in my career, um, but mostly I work directly with authors. Um, it is true that, and actually, Tao, I was going to throw this back to you once we get to the agent because you, as you said, you have an agent. I've never, had a personal agent, so I don't know what that relationship is like on the other side. But you're right. I mean, an agent is there to advocate for the best uh, delivery of the book, for the best result as an author for you. Is that right, Tao? I mean, would you say that's pretty right?
Yes,
An
yeah,
agent's duty. I mean,
that is their job. Yes.
it is tricky. So, I guess I think. it's a tricky one because you could say either I would encourage everyone to attempt, to get an agent. I think, if you are if you think you've got a really compelling book, and I mean, something that's going to fly pretty well, it's always worth, I think, trying to get an agent if you can. But that can be a tricky prospect as well, and that can eat up a massive amount of time as well. There is certainly nothing wrong with working directly with your publisher as an author. Happens, all the time. I can, personally as an editor, I can work with either, directly with the author or the agent. But yeah, I mean, there's several schools of thought on that. Uh, that it's a tricky one. Flat page is a bit different because well, I get to, I actually have the opportunity to work directly with the authors and at a very high level, often very early in the project. That's nice. I'm not having, I'm not balancing several dozen, projects and then like, several, meetings or conferences or whatever at the same time. We're being very deliberate about our work here. We're being very selective about the books that we get into. So, lines of communication are always open. And that's the most important thing I think about having an agent is that agent handles the communication for you so that you can focus on your book. It's a great idea. I would never discourage anyone from attempting to get an agent. But don't sweat it if it doesn't happen. The big trade houses, the very big ones, they don't, I think I'm pretty sure they don't look at unagented projects, but that's just one example. There are many publishers out there who do not require an agent. So, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that question. That was wonderful.
Yeah, and Sean, Park and Sean, I'd like to add something else as well. You said that working directly with a publisher without an agent can be risky, and I am certainly sympathetic to that. I think, you've worked so hard on your project and you put a lot of sweat and time into it, and so I understand being protective over it and having that concern. So if and I agree that there are publishers out there who you might not want to trust with your project. So what's really important to me is that you really vet your publisher. You look at the books that they've produced. If you can get your hands on a copy, see what the quality is like, see what the editing is like, see what the author says about the publisher. I think that's really important too. Our recent author, Christopher Strain, he had a really nice experience working with us, and so he was able to talk about it on one of our blog posts. And so that kind of firsthand conversation can help you feel a little bit more comfortable. But I know how much it takes to put your work in the hands of another person. And so I really encourage everyone to do your research, to really ask questions, ask questions of the publisher, ask questions of the editor. Don't be afraid to ask for and advocate for what you need for your book. And so we will always be really open to these conversations at Flat Page too.
Hmm.
Thanks for the question, Sean,
Absolutely.
and Sean and everyone else.
Yes.
Um, all right, Eli, we probably could tackle one or two more.
Cool.
Here's another one about timing that was sent directly to me.
Oh.
What if you have an idea for a book and haven't yet crystallized it into a pitch or proposal? Should
Hmm.
you start talking to the editor already at that point?
Um, yeah, I'm happy to go first. Absolutely. It's never too early to talk to an editor if you can get them on the line. It's oftentimes that's the best way, especially if you've got an idea, if you've got a sense of a specific publisher you want to work with, introduce yourself as early as possible, in terms of how to describe it or discuss your project at that very, very early
Hmm.
stage. What you're going to be talking about then is what compelled you to start the project. you're going to be you're basically want to give the editor a sense of what got you started on this road, what brought you to the project, what's compelling. That's the sort of stuff that you can do. So you can talk about it in very general terms, without, having to obviously get into, the specifics because you don't have the material yet. So it's never too early, and it's never too early to both talk to the editor and to begin discussing your project, even if it's still coming together in your mind.
Hmm.
An editor will respect that if the idea is worthwhile, if they see it, and most editors should be able to tell from, a pretty decent description whether or not they think it's going to work. You can never go wrong, in
Yeah.
my opinion, with communication.
That's exactly right. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, again, I talked about pitching as practice, right? So it gives you a chance to really think about your project and what it is you want to say about it. And each
Mm.
time you talk about it, you'll become more confident in what it is your story is, and you'll tell the story more capably. So I say yes, open to those conversations. We're certainly open to them at Flat Page.
Mm.
Okay, we've got another question from Emily, and she says, can you speak a little bit about the expectations for the author's existing platform? That's a huge catchword in publishing right now, Emily.
Mm.
I understand. What are editors at Flatpage hoping to see in this section?
Mm. What do you think, Tal? You want to take that one first?
So I think that's actually what separates a publisher like Flatpage, an independent publisher, from someone like a Big Five, a trade publisher. Because if you are going to trade publishers, and even if you're going to many agents, they will want to see platform. They'll want to see, followers in the, many thousands, a Substack newsletter, presence in various places. And I think one of the luxuries we have at Flatpage is that we are not as fixated on that because, we don't have the same, the same shareholder expectations, the same financial constraints of having these blockbuster bestsellers from, celebrities or people who, sell out their books every time they publish. We are willing to take the risk on somebody who doesn't have an established platform yet.
Mhm.
But I think, and Eli, please, add to this, but I
Yeah.
think, I think what's important is that we understand that the author is looking to reach their ideal reader. So
Mm.
maybe it's not on social media, although that's always a plus because that's where a lot of people are finding authors and creators these days. Maybe it's that you have a really robust newsletter and that you're
Mhm.
able to talk about your research in a way that's accessible to people. I recently looked at a proposal where the author had a beautiful newsletter and she
Mm.
produced a quarterly publication that went out via email, and it was just such a labor of love, and you could tell the effort put into it and the concern about adding value to the reader's life. So to me, that is more important than whether you have this, blooming social media presence. What do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I mean, social media right now is going through, obviously, strange times. I mean, I remember when Twitter was considered all essential, and now it can be a mess. I think as an editor, what I'd be more concerned with, I'm not really, it's what matters to me is that you're open and willing to embrace any kind of platform. We're, for let's go back to Chris's book. Um, we've brought him quite a few ideas, and he's open to them, and that's important. His platform. He probably would describe his platform as not very robust, but he's willing to try anything. He's willing to listen to our ideas and follow them. So that's that alone gets you where you need to be. In terms of the specifics of your platform, what it looks like, what kind of outreach you have. Um, we'll start with what you've got, and then we'll go from there. But I don't. Given the chaos of social media, given well, the chaos of in general. of the internet. We're not, we're not going to pose expectations on what kind of platform you specifically should have. At least not from my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's kind of my thought on the matter.
Yep, that's exactly right for me too, Eli. I think what we want to see is that you can be an ambassador for your work, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to care more about your book than you, and your editor and publishers, of course, will care very deeply. But you are ultimately the person who can be in front of readers, who
Mm.
can make the content engaging for them, who can pull them in with what it is that you bring to the table. So we're just looking for authors who are open to being ambassadors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Well,
I see one
you
more
see one more?
question
Okay, great.
up there from Kandala, I believe. It was I was wondering if you could speak to the difference between a nonfiction proposal and academic book proposals. Great idea. Yeah,
Oh,
great
thank
point.
you.
Great point. Yeah, so I mean, you can think of an academic book proposal as almost like a job application. If in an academic book proposal, you are trying to demonstrate several things. First, that you have a compelling idea. Second, that you know the field, the discipline, the literature, and third, that this is obviously part of your livelihood. I mean, an academic book proposal is supposed to contribute to your tenure and promotion, or have whatever. That's kind of what it is. Nonfiction proposals are a little less convoluted, aren't they? I mean, you're not. It certainly knowledge of the field certainly matters, but you don't have to have an encyclopedic, huge library in which to refer to. For a straight up nonfiction proposal, again, what we're looking for is that you can tell a story, and that you can make anything impactful, have meaning. That's so important. So yeah, the academic book proposal is a very is indeed a different beast. It's going to have some different elements in play, but yeah, it's going to look different from your basic, your tradition, your straight up trade nonfiction proposal. I think. Does that comport with you? Do you think that's right, Tao?
Absolutely. And I will rely on Eli every time when we talk about academic proposals because he's worked in university presses for decades. So you have all the knowledge there, all the insider knowledge.
I have no knowledge. No. All right. Well, I guess that's yeah. Okay, that's it then. Yeah. We okay. Cool. Um, let's see. So to wrap up, then, obviously, thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
I wanted to mention at first that we will be having another event in April. We're still formulating what that will be, but please do, keep an eye out for that. Sign up for a newsletter. Follow us on social media if you want. Tao, would you like to add anything before we officially sign off?
No, it's just been a pleasure talking to Eli and hearing your questions. And I hope some of you will reach out to us. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, likewise too. Thank you all so much. Thanks for spending some time with us. Nonfiction proposals are fun, but they're tricky. Uh, but you know what? We're here to help. So reach out anytime.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Thank you guys.